Hi, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of The Apparition, and welcome to my channel. And happy Valentine's Day tomorrow. So in today's video, we're going to be doing some Valentine's Day recs, but this isn't going to have any romance in it. So if you're looking for actual love stories, this is not going to be the video for you, because we are going to be talking about toxic relationships and stalking and obsession and everything except actual romance. So I did do a video last year that was romantic subplots. So if you missed that and you wanted to take a peek at it, I will link it at the end. So the first few books I want to talk about actually take place around the actual holiday of Valentine's Day. So we have a couple of thrillers. One is The Invisible Girl by Lisa Jewell. So this is about a woman who was going to a child psychologist for about 3 years, but then he decides that she doesn't need therapy anymore, but that makes her feel pretty lonely and kind of adrift. And so she starts hanging around his house to take a glimpse of him and his perfect, or seemingly perfect family, I should say. But then she disappears. And so this psychologist, he has a neighbor that everybody's kind of suspicious of, and they kind of wonder if he had done something to his former patient. And then we have The Writing Retreat, and I absolutely loved this one. I thought it was really, really good. However, I did think the last 100 pages were a little bit over dramatic and a little bit not well written and kind of went off the rails, but not necessarily in a good way. But the first 2/3 of this book I thought were phenomenal, and I really, really enjoyed my time reading it. And this has a Valentine's Day party in it, so that's why I'm including it. Is we have a lot of details when it comes to this party, so it's a good one to pick up during Valentine's Day, even though it doesn't technically have anything to do with romance or anything like that. It just happens to have a Valentine's Day party in it. And then we have Lila's Secret Valentine, and this is a nostalgic middle grade book that I used to be obsessed with Sweet Valley High when I was a kid. I guess this is not Sweet Valley High, but this is Sweet Valley Twins when they're elementary, but I used to read the ones where they're in high school all the time. So anyways, this is about Lila, who is the mean girl of the Unicorn Club, which is the club that Jessica is a part of, who is one of the twins. And she doesn't have a date for the Valentine's Day dance at school, and she told everybody she did, and she hyped up this boy that was so handsome and rich and all this stuff, and so her friends are so excited to meet this boy. Problem is, she made him up, and so now she doesn't know what to do. And then speaking of nostalgic reads, we have it Be Mine. This is a point horror book, and this is about a girl in high school who has a secret admirer that's leaving her little notes and hearts and stuff. And then we have a super chiller by R.L. Stine, and this one's called Broken Hearts. And this also takes place around Valentine's Day, where the girls of Shadyside High are receiving these ominous valentines from a secret admirer, but there's a Valentine's Day murderer on the loose, and so they're afraid that these valentines are coming from the murderer. So I read all 3 of these last year, and I thought they were all pretty fun. Okay, so now I want to talk about a couple of science fiction novels, starting with The One by John Mars. And this is set in the future in a world where your DNA can tell you who your soulmate is. And so the government, I don't know if it's actually the government, but there's some really big ultra company that a lot of people use, and so they take your DNA and they find your soulmate. But the problem is sometimes you're already married, or sometimes you're too young, or sometimes the person that they matched you with you don't like, or maybe the person they matched you with is already dead. So there's all of these different hurdles that can happen. But people are obsessed with finding out who their soulmate is. This wasn't my favorite book of all time, but I did enjoy having lots of different perspectives so that you can see all the different things that could happen with technology like this. And then we have Who Wants to Live Forever. I have not read this one yet. I actually got this last month in my Aardvark book club box. And this is set in a future where people can live forever, but not everyone, a select few can live forever. I don't know if it's the haves and the have-nots, where only the rich get to live forever, or I don't know. Again, I haven't read it yet. But there's these 2 people who are in love and they think they're going to be together forever. But the boy, he gets the opportunity to be one of these chosen few that get to live forever. And so he decides to leave his supposed soulmate to go live forever. And so now she's devastated because she thought that their love was true, but now he's left her for immortality. So it sounds pretty interesting, and I'm excited to see what it's all about. And then we have a thriller called The Compound. This is from a debut author. I got this in the Book of the Month book subscription box, and I've heard mixed things about it. Some people seem to love it and other people seem to not like it very much. This is another one that I haven't read yet, so I'm hoping to be one of the ones that like it. But this is about a reality TV show about these group of people that go to this luxurious resort, and they have to do certain things in order to get rewards. And one of those things that they have to do is they have to, I don't know if they have to actually hook up, like as in have sex with, but they have to kind of couple up with people in order to get these rewards and in order to get further and ahead in the game. So I hear it's supposed to be like Love Island and The Bachelor, so sounds like a fun time. So now I have a bunch more YA nostalgic reads. I'm not going to give a synopsis for these because there's quite a few. I just wanted to showcase them so you can look them up on your own if any of these look or sound interesting to you. So first we have some point horror books. The first one being My Secret Admirer. And then we have some more point horror books, but they're all from R.L. Stine. And we have The Dead Girlfriend, Blind Date, The Boyfriend, and The Girlfriend. And then we have some R.L. Stine books from the original Fear Street series, starting with First Date. This was the first Fear Street book I ever read, and I absolutely adored it. I thought it was so scary and creepy, and I loved it. And it's been a love affair with this series ever since. And then we have The Double Date. We have College Weekend, where this girl's boyfriend comes home from college to visit her. Another Secret Admirer. The New Boy, who's very hunky apparently, but maybe dangerous. We have The Boy Next Door, same kind of concept. It says they were flirting with death. The Perfect Date. I love these little blurbs where they're like dream date or nightmare, and then Killer's Kiss. So then I have a couple where there's some messed up families, but then love kind of makes the main character question things. So first is Brother by, I don't know if it's Anya Alborn or Ania Alborn, but whatever it is, this is about a cannibalistic family who murder people, but the main son, well, our main character, who is the youngest son, he meets one of these girls that they're supposed to kill, but he kind of develops feelings for her, and he's not sure he wants to do that anymore, and it starts to make him question his family and if he truly wants to be a part of them anymore. And then in that same vein, we have How I'll Kill You by Ren Stefano, and same thing, but this is three sisters who are triplets and they kill men. So these murderous triplets, they've always done everything together, but then one of the triplets, she meets what they call the Mark, which is the next man that they're going to kill, but she again develops feelings for him and she doesn't want to kill him because she kind of likes him. And then we have a couple of books that take place at a wedding. So we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I'm sure you've already heard of this one. It's a very popular thriller, but this takes place at a wedding on an island, and murder happens, and they have to see if they can figure out who the murderer is before the wedding gets ruined. And then we have The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulak, and this is about a man whose daughter is about to get married, but the father, even though he's been estranged from his daughter, he still feels protective of her, and he's not sure he likes the fiance, he's not sure he trusts the fiance or his family, and so he's trying to make sure his daughter is making a good decision when it comes to marrying this man. I loved Hidden Pictures, so I wanted to read something else from him. This one wasn't quite as good. The synopsis didn't capture my attention the way that one did, but I still like his writing and I wanted to pick something up from him. And then we have some of those types of stories where you don't know if you can always trust the people that you're dating. And we have The Boyfriend by Frida McFadden, and she obviously receives a boyfriend and she's really into him, but then murders start to happen and she's afraid that her boyfriend is the murderer, and this guy's MO is that he dates these women before he kills them, and so she's starting to think that maybe this man that she's been dating for the last few months is planning on murdering her next. And then we have Blind Date by Wendy Clark, and this is about a woman who really doesn't want to date. She's had problems in the past, and she's just gone through a divorce and it was not a good thing, and she's not into love anymore, but she's also lonely, and her friend is like, oh, I found this perfect man for you, you need to go out on a date with him. So she allows her to set her up on this blind date, and so she ends up liking this man and they have a nice dinner, and she even ends up at his place and in his bed. But when it's time to leave his house or his apartment or whatever, discovered is then she hears the door locking and realizes that she's actually been kidnapped by this man who was supposed to be her blind date, which kind of leads into like serial killer type books, which is a lot of men being disgustingly obsessed with women, and they either want to murder them or they want to keep them. So in this one, there's plenty of serial killers out there that obviously kill people, but I tried to pick ones that were more in the sense of kidnapping them, because it's more like a love thing, because he wants to keep these women because they're beautiful or they're his soulmates, and he just wants to keep these beautiful women in his life, you know. And so it's kind of that toxicity rather than just going out and going on a murder spree, if that makes sense. So this first one is very, very, very messed up, so trigger warnings. And this is a classic, and I'm talking about Lolita. And the reason why this one is so hard to read and is so messed up is because the girl that this man is obsessed with is a child. She's not an adult, and so that's just makes it extra disgusting and gross. So yeah, but this man is obsessed with this little girl, thinks she's so beautiful, and he's just so enamored with her, you know, and he kind of stalks her and dreams of kidnapping her and making her his. And then in that same vein, which is pretty much the exact same except it's not with a child, it's with an adult, and is also a classic, is known as The Collector. And so this man becomes obsessed with this woman, thinks of her as like his beautiful butterfly, takes pictures of her. He's actually one of her young art students, and so he has this obsession with her where he stalks her and wants to make her his. And then speaking of beautiful butterflies, we have The Butterfly Collection. This is a YA novel about this man who is a serial kidnapper, and he takes all of these teenage girls and he puts them in what he calls his butterfly garden, and he actually tattoos a butterfly onto these women, and he calls them his beautiful butterflies, you know, and they all live together, and you know, they're just his beautiful playthings basically. And then we have The Cellar. This is also a YA novel about a serial kidnapper, and I mean, he does murder women too, but he kidnaps these women that he calls his flowers, and they each have a flower name, so they can no longer be known by their original name. They are Rose or Lilac or Violet or whatever, and he keeps them in his basement. But he does kill women as well, and so he'll take prostitutes and he will murder them because they're not as pure and beautiful as his beautiful flowers, you know, so he doesn't want to keep them, but he still has his urges, you know, and so he has sex with these women and then murders them. So pretty messed up, but it's really, really good. I really, really loved this book, and I went out immediately and bought all of Natasha Preston's books and have been making my way through them. Unfortunately, none of them have lived up to this one. Some of them have been okay, and then other ones I haven't even liked, but this one is definitely the best one that I've read of hers so far, and probably will ever. I don't know. I still have quite a few I need to read of hers, but I just have a hard time believing that they're going to live up to this first one because it was really good. Which kind of brings us into obsession and stalking, and so these are all going to be books about stalkers, starting with the most obvious, which is You by Carolyn Kepnes. And this is about Joe Goldberg, who meets this woman at a bookstore and becomes obsessed with her, and she's everything that he wanted in a woman, so he stalks her and watches her, and he pretends that they're basically already in a relationship, but they're not, obviously. And then speaking of Natasha Preston, we have The Obsession, and this is her brand newest one that just came out like a month or two ago. Maybe it's not that soon, maybe it's been a few months, but either way, it's her newest release, and I thought it sounded really good, so I picked it up when I was at Target. And this is about Connie, who had the misfortune of having one of those mothers who like to be a family influencer online, and her whole life has been portrayed online for the world to see. And of course, there's going to be predators out there that become obsessed with her and start to stalk her. And, you know, her mother has put her in this precarious predicament. And then we have another YA novel that's also called The Obsession, and this one is by Jessie Q. Sutanto. And this is about this girl who goes to the school with this boy named Logan, and Logan thinks Delilah hung the moon and she's awesome and, you know, everything he wanted in a woman. But Delilah, she doesn't know who Logan is. So it says, Logan believes no one knows Delilah like he does. He makes sure of it by learning everything he can, watching her through a hidden camera. Some might call him a stalker. Logan prefers to be called romantic. And then we have Love Letters to a Serial Killer, and this is about this woman who becomes obsessed with a serial killer because she's obsessed with true crime, and so this is meant to be a satirical dig at people who get obsessed with true crime, and so she gets obsessed with the serial killer who's in prison, and she starts writing him love letters. And the really gross thing is this happens in real life all the time, and I do not understand it, but serial killers always receive love notes while they're in prison, and girls seem to fall in love with them and be obsessed with them. I don't get it. I don't understand why you would love and be obsessed with a man who murders women, but obviously they have mental health issues or unresolved problems in their past. But anyways, I haven't read this one, but I've seen it around and I've heard people talk about it with mixed reviews. I've heard some people love it and some people didn't, but I would like to check it out at some point because it sounds fascinating at the very least. And then we have If I Can't Have You by Charlotte Levin, and this is about a nurse who begins work at this hospital and she falls head over heels for this doctor, and they go out for a few months, but then he breaks up with her and she's like, oh, just give him time, he'll come back to me. And then we have Never Let You Go by Chevy Stevens. I recently read The Hitchhikers by Chevy Stevens, and so I've been interested in reading more from her because that was a phenomenal book, so I want to check this one out. I haven't done so yet. This is about a woman whose ex-husband just barely got out of prison, and she believes that he is stalking her and coming for her. Then So Happy Together, and this was about a girl who becomes obsessed with this boy that she goes on a few dates with. I think they've only been on 6 dates, and he decides, she's not really doing it for him. He doesn't think this relationship will go anywhere, and he stops asking her out, but she knows that this is just a stumbling block in their relationship and she can get him back. Even when he starts dating this girl named Zoe, and instead of becoming jealous and envious, she's like, no, we're soulmates. I'm going to make this work. He doesn't really love her. He loves me. And she's bound and determined to get him to fall head over heels for her again. I haven't read this one yet either, and I'm really tempted to add it to my February TBR because I really want to read it, but I already have a lot of things on my plate to read. Do not have time to read this one, but I'm so tempted to drop everything and just read this, but probably not. And then speaking of toxic love stories, we have A Twisted Love Story by Samantha Downing, and this is about a couple who are very toxic and not good for each other, but they keep coming back to each other over and over again, and they keep feeding off of each other's energy, and it's just not good. And then we have Colleen Hoover's newest release, which is called Woman Down. The only thing I've read from Colleen Hoover is Verity. I'm not really interested in reading any of her romances, but this is more of a romantic thriller, which is like Verity, and so I was interested in seeing what this was all about. And this is about a screenwriter who is kind of in a pickle because she needs to do a film adaptation, but she's just not feeling it. She can't get into the groove when it comes to writing, and she's come to a standstill and she's got writer's block. But there ends up being a murder in the area, or maybe it's a kidnapping. Something goes on and she thinks she knows something, so she gets in contact with this detective, and he's pretty cute and she likes him, and so she kind of strikes up a relationship with him, and he kind of becomes her muse because as soon as she starts thinking about this guy and hanging out with this guy, all of a sudden the creative juices are flowing and she can finally write. But then comes to find out that maybe this detective is not the good person that she thought he was, but at the same time, how is she possibly going to write without? So if you can't tell, I haven't read this one yet, but I'm very eager to do so. And then we have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and some people say this is one of the original psychological thrillers. I'm not really sure how that's possible because this didn't come out super long time ago, but I've just heard people classify it as that. But I think it's just because it had this amazing twist, and up until then I think thrillers were thrilling, but they didn't necessarily have those wild, crazy twists that every thriller tries to have nowadays, and this kind of started that trend. But even though this is a classic in the genre, I still have not read this. I got this at a thrift store years and years ago, and I just never picked it up, which is terrible. But I believe I already know what the twist is, though, unfortunately. I could be wrong, but I'm not gonna say, so I don't ruin it for you guys if you haven't read it yet. But basically, this woman does something to her husband, which is despicable, and, to get him back for something or something like that. And it's not good. She's obviously very unhinged. And then we have some books by Darby Kane. I have not read anything by Darby Kane, but I have picked up a few of her books. One of them was from Book of the Month, and then a couple were in a free little library, so I want to check her out, but I just haven't yet. But ironically, the 3 books I have from her all have very similar titles. So we have What the Wife Knew, and I believe this is about a woman whose husband dies in a fatal accident. I think he falls down the stairs, and everybody believes that she did it because he's this famous surgeon, and so now she's this rich widow, and it's always the spouse, so she's trying to prove her innocence. And then we have the replacement wife, and I believe this is about this woman who doesn't like her sister's husband, and so she believes that her brother-in-law is actually a serial killer that has killed women in the past. But it sounds like she gets involved with his girlfriend, so I don't know if it's because, because it was her brother-in-law, so obviously something happened to her sister, like maybe she was killed, or maybe she's been missing, and so now he's dating somebody else. But she's trying to figure out if her brother-in-law or former brother-in-law had done something to her sister. And then we have Pretty Little Wife, and I actually don't know what this is about, but it says there's more than one way to end a marriage. So it sounds like maybe this unhinged woman might try and murder her husband. I'm not sure. And then we have The Perfect Marriage by Geneva Rose, and I haven't read this one because I just wasn't that interested in it, to be honest. I hear really good things about it. People rave about this book, and I know she recently came out with a sequel because it was so popular, but I don't know, I'm not sure I really want to read it. But this is about a woman whose husband has this mistress that she didn't know about. This mistress ends up dead, and so her husband comes to her and pleads for her to help him because she's a lawyer, and he's like, I didn't do this, I'm sorry I cheated on you, I'm sorry I'm a crap husband, but I did not kill this person, and now I'm on death row for her murder when I didn't do it. And so she is reluctantly trying to see if her husband is actually guilty or not. And then we have My Husband's Wife, and this is about this woman who moves to this new house with her husband called Spyglass, and everything seems idyllic, and she's out for a run one day, and when she gets back to the house, her key doesn't fit in the lock, and so she's like, what's going on? Why doesn't my key fit? So she knocks on the door for her husband to let her inside, but this woman comes to the door instead, and she claims to be the wife of her husband and that she lives in this house called Spyglass. And so now we as the reader have to figure out which one of these two women are lying and which one is apparently crazy or has amnesia problems. So I haven't read this one yet. This is the newest by Alice Feeney. It just came out not too long ago. I think it might have even come out this month. I don't know. It either came out this month or last month. So I haven't gotten to it yet, but it sounds really fun. I've been hearing rave reviews for this one. People are saying it's the best Alice Feeney book so far, so I'm excited to see what all the hype is about. And then we have Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. So there's this woman who just barely gave birth, and she thinks she has the perfect life. She has this new little baby, she has the perfect husband, and she's just gone back to work after her maternity leave. But while she's, starting this new phase of her life, she gets this cryptic note about her husband, and then on the news that night there's some kind of hostage situation in her town, and her husband is involved, but she soon finds out that he's not a victim that's being held hostage. She's actually the person that is holding other people hostage, and she's like, that's not my husband, he would never, So this is another one I haven't read. I know, I'm terrible. I have so many books and I've only read probably half of them. But this is another one that I'm very anxious to get to. And then we have Cross My Heart by Megan Collins. And I originally wanted to pick this up because this sounds like the thriller version of Return to Me, which is a really good rom-com that is about this woman who receives a heart transplant, and then she ends up falling in love with the husband of the wife whose heart she has. And so this is the same thing, but make it a thriller. And so this woman, she has a heart transplant, and she was dumped at the altar, and she is now working for her mother at her wedding salon. And so love is all around her and talk about weddings and stuff, and so she really wants to have her happily ever after, especially now that she has this new heart and this new perspective on life, and she knows how precarious life can be, and she just wants to find love. And so she messages the husband of the woman whose heart she had received, and she starts to realize that maybe because she has this woman's heart, her and this man are actually meant to be together. But as she gets more and more enamored with this guy, pretending to want to know about his wife, but really wanting to get close to him, she starts to realize that maybe he's not all that she thought he was, and maybe he had something to do with his wife's death. Okay, so now we're going to get into some thrillers that are about couples. Not to say that these other ones that I've been talking about haven't been about couples, because obviously they have, but it seems a little bit more one-sided, where one of them's the unsuspecting victim and the spouse is the one that's unhinged or whatever. But in these ones, it seems like perhaps perhaps both are unhinged. And it's more about the both of them rather than just the perspective of one of them, if that makes sense. So the first one is by Alice Feeney, and this one's Rock, Paper, Scissors. This is the first book from hers I ever read, and the twist absolutely blew me away. It knocked my socks off. So the story itself wasn't like super good or anything, but that twist, I was just like, wow, I did not see that coming. And unfortunately, since then, I've seen this twist done over and over and over again in other books, but this is the one I read first, and it shocked me truly. So I will always love it for that reason. But this is about this couple who go to this remote cabin where they can work on their marriage, and they can get away from the world. And it's a snowy read, obviously, from the cover. And so they're just trying to figure out if they can make a real go of their marriage and try to get past their issues. But then, some unhinged stuff happens, and yeah, it's pretty good. And then we have The Long Weekend by Gillian Macmillan. I haven't read anything by this author yet. I actually want to do a taste test of this author because I have 3 of her books and I haven't read any of them. But this is about these 3 couples that go away for the weekend, so the long weekend, to have a vacation together as couples. But the wives head up first, and then the husbands are supposed to meet them later because they have work and stuff. And so they're like, we'll just go ahead and get started on the vacation and we'll meet you up there. But the husbands never show up. And then a note comes that says that one of the husbands has been killed, and that if these women don't do what they're told, the other husbands are going to be killed as well. So maybe not about unhinged couples per se, but I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of secrets about these couples that come out, and there's going to be a lot of drama. So I don't think it's going to be just, oh, we're such victims, and oh no, our poor husband. I think something bigger and more nefarious is going to go down. And then these last 4 thrillers I want to talk about actually have couple in the title. So we have The Golden Couple, and this is about a couple who are struggling in their marriage, and the wife actually cheated on the husband, but she wants to make things work and she wants to give their marriage a real go, and so they go to marriage counseling. But I believe the counselor that they go to becomes obsessed with the husband, and she's actually not a therapist. She lost her license for doing unhinged things, and one of those things being that she'll go to her clients' houses and watch them, through their windows to see what they're doing in their lives so that she can better, help them, and her twisted logic behind that. But I read the first 50 pages of this because of a video that I was doing, and then unfortunately I never went back and finished it. But those first 50 pages were really good, and I'm really excited to eventually get back to this. And then we have The New Couple in 5B, and I picked this one up because the cover is gorgeous. I love the pink, I love the architecture right here, and this is about a creepy apartment called the Windermere, and that just gives me Rosemary's Baby vibes, or The Nestlings from Nat Cassidy. I love that type of story, and so I was eager to pick this up. But unfortunately, I had read a few things by Lisa Unger, and while they always sounded fantastic, I just never loved them, and so it never seemed to live up to the synopsis. And so I have not read this one yet because I've been reluctant to pick it up because I want it to be so good. But as soon as I bought it, I started hearing all these bad reviews for it, and where I already kind of didn't like the author all that much, I just haven't picked it up. But I really do want to, and I'm hoping that I'm just an anomaly that will like it. I'm hoping at the very least it's atmospheric, but we'll see. But yeah, this is about this man who inherits this luxury apartment called the Windermere, and he and his wife move in, but then they start to wonder if something's going on at the Windermere because it seems like a lot of gruesome murders and things take place at this apartment. And then they start to see cameras everywhere, and they suspect that perhaps the doorman is even watching them, and so it's got this creepy atmosphere about it. Like I said, I want it to be so good, but I kind of have my doubts, so I haven't picked it up yet. And then we have Just the Nicest Couple by Mary Kubica, and this is about 2 different couples, and one of the husbands ends up missing. So his wife is obviously frantic and wanting to know what happened to her husband, and her best friend admits to her husband that she was the last one that actually saw her best friend's husband before he went missing. And so her husband's like, well, we can't tell anybody, we can't be implementing documented in this, and so they're keeping this big secret from her best friend. But I heard that not a lot of people liked this. A lot of people thought it was just okay, but I loved it. This was a 5-star read for me. I thought it was really, really good. So I don't know. And then we have One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware. I wanted to read this last summer and just didn't get around to it, but this is about a few couples who are part of this reality TV show. And so this woman, which is our main character, goes with her boyfriend to this island as part of this reality TV show where they're all trying to vie for a cash prize for, whichever one is the perfect couple. And so it's kind of like a reality show about love and relationships, But before the end of the show, there's a big tropical storm that happens and they end up stranded on this island where they were going to film this TV show and they get stranded there. So I'm a little bit leery to read this one because I really, really, really want it to be about the reality TV show and all the drama of that, and I want to actually see the game take place, because sometimes it drives me crazy when they're part of this reality TV show and then nothing about the show actually ever happens, like they never make it to the show, and I hate that. And I'm a little bit nervous that that's what this is going to be, because I heard like the last half of it is more of a survival story about, surviving the wilderness on this island, which could be good, but it's just not quite what I wanted when I picked this up, from the synopsis. I wanted to learn about the reality TV show, not about surviving. So I don't know. I'm tentatively excited for this one. And then the last one is a supernatural thriller by Sarah Pinborough called We Live Here Now. And this is another 5-star read for me. I loved this book. And this is about a couple who moved to this old creepy house and they're trying to make a go of their marriage. Their marriage is a little bit rocky, and the woman, she has amnesia from an accident that she had, and she had sepsis, and so she almost died, and so she kind of has PTSD from that. But they're trying to move on and make a new life for themselves at this house, but they have these ongoing dramatic problems with each other, and she knows that her husband has a secret that he's not telling her. So I really liked this one a lot. I thought it was really well done and I really enjoyed it. So that's it. That's all the recommendations I have for you for this Valentine's Day. I hope you found a few books that you can add to your own TBR, either this or next February. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. Please subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.